Hi, everybody. I just wanted to wrap up our notes for social theory. As we talked about in Monday's class, functionalism is the theory that assumes society wants harmony and balance. It also assumes that society wants to maintain a sort of homeostasis. And we talked about how um, it, this theory in particular sees society as sort of an organism that works together to maintain this homeostasis. One of the other things we mentioned in class was this idea of manifest versus latent functions. Conflict theory, on the other hand, suggests that maybe society isn't one big harmonious whole. Instead, it's made up of different parts that are not working together but actually in competition with each other. These different parts are seen as different groups: men, women, rich, poor, minority, white, and they are in competition over scarce resources. Unequal relationships propel society, and conflict between groups is what leads to social change. This social theory is excellent at describing social change and explaining how social change happens. It is also excellent at examining ways in which groups are exploited and oppressed. When it comes to change itself, many conflict theorists argue that slow change actually just perpetuates inequality, meaning that it does nothing to fix the unequal relationships that already exist. Instead, what we need is radical, structural change that should happen abruptly and quickly in order to get the process started of making things much more equal. When it comes to symbolic interactionism, our third theory here, we're more focused on the micro level analysis. And we're focused on the symbols and gestures that are exchanged between individuals, also the meaning that gets attached to our interactions. An example of this is seen in the various meanings that get attached to different symbols in society. So, for example, there's certain meaning that gets attached to the idea of marriage. Think about what pops in your head when it comes to marriage. Some of us may feel apprehension, nervousness, or some of us may feel excitement, something that we're really looking forward to. And we have all sorts of feelings that get attached to marriage, but nonetheless, marriage is a powerful symbol in society. Think about another powerful symbol, the driver's license. For many people, a driver's license represents freedom. Think about the another powerful symbol of the American flag. Um, let's see, what other symbols can we think of? The symbol of the tools that we use for in daily life. The coffee maker. What does that represent? It represents early mornings. It typically represents a busy life that requires energy. Think about the variety of tools that different people use at their jobs. For some, a keyboard is a representation of how they get their work done. For others, a computer means nothing to them. In fact, they're more of hands-on type of um, individuals who have jobs requiring knowing their way around power tools, drills, and a reciprocating saw, and things like that. So just think about those things and what kind of symbols get attached to them related to gender, related to social class. Those are very powerful things. Symbols are very powerful things, and symbolic interactionism tries to remind us about that fact. Then you have social theory number 4, which is feminist sociology. Many people put this together with conflict theory, but some people think that this is a completely different branch of theoretical paradigm. But feminist sociology focuses largely on unequal relationships. So you can see why it's very similar to conflict theory. They, in particular, put a focus on gender. And one of the things that it really puts emphasis on is the ways in which the male perspective gets favored over any other perspective. One of the things that feminist sociology also brings to the table is to recognize that we can obtain data and research topics from areas and individuals that are often overlooked in society. So, by examining those who are underprivileged and underrepresented, we can learn the reality of our society a bit more. For the longest time, sociology was a science where the male perspective was seen as most important. When it came to sociological research, most of the participants in research studies were men. And so all we knew about society was based on what these men were saying. So that obviously needed to radically change if we wanted to say anything true about the reality of our world, and therefore feminist sociology was huge in making that happen. The last thing is not a thing I'll cover is not a theory, but actually a concept, the concept of intersectionality. Perhaps you have heard of this concept, but basically it means to examine the ways in which a variety of different inequalities intersect with one another. So for example, we can't just study gender inequality without studying social class inequality as well. So we can't just study how women are treated differently from men, because at the same time, not all women are treated the same as other women. What this means is that some women who maybe work low-wage jobs don't have as much rights and access to resources as women who work professional positions, doctors, lawyers, teachers, professors, that kind of thing. Think about who has more access to resources in general in society. Women who work low-wage labor, unskilled labor, low-skilled labor, low-paid labor, such as house cleaners, hotel cleaning staff, very sort of low-level warehouse factory workers, or the scientists, female scientists, female doctors, lawyers. Now, don't get me wrong, female scientists, female lawyers, doctors have to face gender discrimination, but it's definitely a different type of discrimination that they're going through, and different issues that they're faced with when compared to someone like who let's say is making below minimum wage. And so all intersectionality argues is that we have to take that into consideration. We can't just lump all women into one group and say they are all experiencing the same amount of oppression. There are levels to any sort of analysis of inequality, and intersectionality just encourages us to look at that. So that's the end there. What we want to do now is go over to our Canvas page and make sure that we are watching the video on The Office and applying one of these theories, whether we want to apply functionalism, conflict theory, symbolic interactionism, or feminist sociology, will be up to us. But functionalists, you can kind of see how The Office works as a equilibrium whole. Conflict theory, there's plenty of competition over scarce resources between, like, let's say the men in the office, women in the office, or let's say warehouse workers versus office workers. Symbolic interactionism, there's a lot of symbolism in some of the things that you see in the episode, like the forklift or the outfits that people have on, things like that. So a lot of symbolism there. Feminist sociology, definitely some inequality between the men and women, both in the warehouse and in the office. And then lastly, again, intersectionality. You can definitely see how an analysis where we look at both gender, but also social class and possibly race as well can help us understand the relationships in the office. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Hopefully, you found this video wrap up useful, and I look forward to reading your analysis of The Office. Reach out with any questions at all.